Alright guys, so just friendly reminder that today is actually the last day, if we are still on the correct school year, when this video is being watched, but today is the last day to ask about chapter worksheet questions. So if you have chapter worksheet questions and it's near the start of your class period, jump on that Zoom call and get those answered, because that's going to be due tomorrow and you're taking that chapter worksheet quiz on it. So really, truly, today is the last Zoom call before the chapter worksheet / test. If you don't need help with any of that, then we are now on this video, we are looking at constructions. Again, constructions is when we use like a ruler or a protractor, usually has a straight edge on it, and like the compass, like the stabby little device. And so we are going to basically look at perpendicular and parallel constructions. So again, I know that in the real world, you can kind of just look at it, turn it till it looks close to 90 and draw your line, right? I get it. Or like that looks about parallel and draw your line. Totally understand it. But we are supposed to teach you how like these old school tools would work, or how do I know something is definitely parallel, which is going to go an extremely long distance, and it's harder for me to just eyeball it and go, this looks about right, and hope. So, two basic things. We're just going to learn how to do a perpendicular and how to do a parallel. So it has the instructions here, but generally if you just kind of want to follow along. Now, if you remember from the first time we did constructions, we learned how to cut a segment in half. Now this is a line, has a random point. They're wanting me to create a perpendicular line running through it. Okay, that's the goal. Now, when we had the segment and we were just going to cut it in half, we would open our compass, we'd put stabby point down, and open up to anything that was more than halfway. So it didn't have to go past it, but it just has to be more than what looks like the middle. And we would take it and we would kind of mark our lines up here, all the way to down here. We'd come to that half circle, and then without changing it, we would come over here and do the same thing. It's kind of hard for me to do that with my hands. But if I were to do that with a tool and super successful, that these two intersection points, when you connected them, it would always cut this in half, but we also pointed out that it would always make 90 degrees, even if that wasn't like the goal of the problem. So now kind of the goal of the problem is I want to make 90 degrees. So it's a very similar setup, but the main thing is I need to get, like if this point here is going to end up being this point. So I need to have that be a midpoint of two other random points. So pretty much how we're going to start this, and it's what the description says, is you're going to open up your stabby device to anything that doesn't go like past this, right? Like, you know, you don't want to like go past and then you can't see it. But if I open up to any amount and I'm going to stabby point on C and basically let's mark off on this side and then mark off on the other side that same equal distance, right? And it's hard to do with my hand, but I'm just trying to show you stabby device with my pencil, like marking this off, marking this off. These are now going to be the 2 points, and I'm just going to repeat that segment bisector thing. So at this point, you can now open your compass to a new setting. Okay, so for these 2 marks, it has to be the same. But now that they're here, you have to open up to anything that's longer than this. So just like over there, it has to be longer than this. So it can be like way longer, but then your points are just way the heck up here. But generally, this needs to be longer than visually midway, and you're going to make those 2 half circles again and basically be done. So I'm gonna open up mine to about here, stabby point on one of my red dots, and do my half circle as best as I can on the smartboard. And then without changing it, I'm gonna come over here and do the same thing and create that half circle. Okay, and again, this is gonna be hard for me to do perfectly with my hand. And now when I connect these 2 things, it should be perpendicular and include that ordered pair. So again, super fast recap. Here is a line, any random point on there. You're going to open up your stabby device and get 2 distances that are equal. Those new ordered pairs, you take your stabby device something longer than the middle and make your 2 half circles. And when I connect those intersections, it's a 90 degree running through the middle. Okay, so there's definitely ones to practice with that. Let's go on to the next one. This one is similar, it's perpendicular again, but this time the point isn't on the line, the point is just floating in outer space. Concept is still the same. I need to get 2 points on here that are sort of equally spaced and literally do the same thing. So the only thing that's different is, so remember the last time the point was on here, so you opened it up and got your 2 marks. Well, we can still get those 2 marks even if the point is off the line. You just have to make sure that your stabby device can reach past this line. So it just can't be short, because it'd be like, you know, T-Rex arms, you're not gonna reach it. But as long as you set any setting that's longer than, like goes past this line, then I can mark here and mark here. Okay, so if I'm doing that more successfully, not with my finger, but this mark off and mark off. So it's like, or heck, draw the whole half circle if it makes you happy. But what I'm looking for are those 2 points, which should be equally distant from here when I do that. Now literally repeat the process, kind of eyeball about where middle is, open your compass to a new setting that's more than that, and basically draw your half, oh my gosh, of course the smartboard wants to be crazy. So I'm gonna open up here and we're going to do my half circle, and then same setting over here, do that half circle, and if I've drawn this beautifully, carefully with my compass, then these two, when I connect them, it should also hit this point and look 90 degrees. So again, fast recap of the 2 things we just saw for perpendicular. So here's a line, here's a line. The point can be on the line, or the point can be like floating above it. Either way, you're gonna take a compass setting and just mark off something that's equally distant to get these 2 points. Or here, just make sure it's long enough that I can hit it in more than one spot. Okay, but either way, you start by getting the 2 helper points. From there, you just open up to a distance that's beyond half and do your half circle, stab the other point, do your half circle. Okay, over here, beyond half, do my half circle, beyond half, do my half circle. And generally, when I connect these 2 with like my ruler, it should include that point and make 90. When I connect these 2 with my ruler, it should include that point and make 90. And again, I'm sketching on the smartboard using my hand and a pinky twist, which is not the same thing as using your actual tool carefully. Okay, so the last thing to look at today is the parallel. So the parallel line is basically going to go off of our corresponding angles postulate, that if I have corresponding angles that are congruent, that it creates parallel lines. And the concept is, last time we did constructions, we learned how to copy an angle. So I'm going to kind of refresh just to see if this pops back into your brain. But if we had a random angle, how we would do that problem is we would start with a random line, great, and then we would take our stabby device to any opening we wanted and mark enough to hit both of those. And then you would come over here, stab this one, and do the same mark. And we just made sure the mark was long enough that it could definitely handle about where that needs to go through. Then what we did was we used our compass more like a ruler. So now that we've got those 2 marked off at the same setting, now we take it, doesn't really matter where, but I usually like stab the bottom, and I slowly closed my compass until this matched. And then I came down here, stabbed the bottom again, and I used, oh no, I have to actually, let me try that again. So here, and we're kind of, like I said, stab the bottom intersection, close it until it looks like if I go to do my mark, that it would hit there. And I come down here and do that same thing. And then when I draw through that intersection, this would be a congruent angle. Now again, I'm trying to draw, this is not what these instructions are saying, this is how we copied an angle before. So again, one more time, super fast. Here's an angle. You start by drawing a random line, you open your compass to any distance you want and just mark off these 2 places, come over here and do the same thing long enough. Then you take your compass, stab and shrink it until it perfectly matches right here, and then come over here and do the same thing. And when I connect those, these should be the same angle. Okay. So let's do that here. So now we're saying, how do I draw a line parallel? And again, I know you're like, well, I can just put my ruler here and be like, no, it's not parallel. I'm like, I know. So we're practicing the old school steps using just that tool. So what you start off is draw any line through this. Now, I do not recommend a mostly almost perpendicular 90 degrees. I personally think the more acute, the easier it's going to be to finish this copy. So you're basically just taking a ruler and running any line you want through this point that hits. Now, that almost barely didn't make it, but generally you want something that is acute in nature I have a vertex, and it just runs through this point. I'm going to highlight where that point is. Basically, what we're going to do is copy this angle. So how do I copy that angle? Well, first of all, let me get that out of the way because I didn't do that with my tool. So I open my tool to any setting I want, and I mark off these two places, come up here to this point, and do the same thing. And again, this should be long enough that it looks like it can handle where the parallel line is going to go through. So now we're going to use this tool to measure it. Now, I'm not going to lie, because I need to mark down here somewhere, like I'm going to make my stabbing point on this vertex. Oh, wait. No. I need to measure like these two pieces. So I'm going to put stabbing point at the top this time because my new point is at the bottom. So stabbing point on top, shrink this until it matches, and I just check that it would mark there. And then I come up here and do the same mark. And again, if I'm using a proper tool, when I connect this to this intersection, it should be parallel because I basically copied the corresponding angle up there. Okay, so I'm just gonna randomly do it again. In fact, I'll just do it on this one below it, just even the same thing. I want a parallel line. I do any line that goes through that point and continue the rest of the way down to see this vertex, because those are gonna be my two like vertices. And again, I heavily suggest a more acute angle. The more upright you make this, the weirder it is to use the compass. At this point, I want to copy this angle. So I open to anything I want and mark this off, come up here, mark this off. Now I use my stabbing device. I basically want to measure the distance between this intersection and here, so I can measure the distance between this intersection and find out where that dot is. So stab, shrink until I perfectly am matching that intersection, come up here, stab, and use that same thing to mark off that intersection. And if you've done this perfectly, connecting them should be parallel. If it's a little off, that's okay. I just want to make sure that I can see all of these markings and that we can tell that that's what you're doing. So the actual homework starts on the next page. It says construction problem number 1. So there's some like extra practice you could do, but basically it's number 1, 2, 3, 4. It's literally 4 of these. So I want you to take and do those 4 and have those uploaded for homework. Remember, again, chapter worksheet is due tomorrow, so that should be done, ready to upload, ready to take that quiz online. As well, you have your test on Friday, so we should be studying for that. All right, so you guys have a good day, good luck, have a good week.